When Ellen saw her own son hand the will to her sister, the woman who'd stolen her home, her husband, and even her name in this town 20 years ago, she didn't scream. She didn't collapse to her knees. She didn't smash the vase on that very dresser Richard had bought her. She simply smiled. The kind of smile that used to unsettle even her old book club friends. Because Ellen already knew, tomorrow, everything would change. And not in her sister's favor. Ellen Holmes lived in the old house on the edge of Oak Hill, a quiet Ohio town where everyone knew everyone, and scandals spread faster than the school bus. The house wasn't just her home, it was her last fortress after the divorce, after Richard's death, after her son Daniel, at 28, decided that Aunt Linda understands honesty better. Linda, her own sister. The one who'd come to help after Richard's stroke and never left. First for a week, then a year, and finally convinced Daniel that Ellen was unstable. That she forgot her medication, mixed up the days, and couldn't manage her own finances. And now, on her 50th birthday, Ellen stood in the living room of that very house, listening as Daniel, her boy, with his father's eyes, announced, "Mom, Linda and I think you'll be safer at Silver Pines." "A retirement home," she asked quietly. "It's not a nursing home. It's an active senior community. And my house? It'll go into a trust. Until you get better." Linda stood beside him, slim, unwrinkled, in a cream cardigan, with a smile carved like it had been sliced by a knife. She didn't even bother hiding her satisfaction. "We're looking out for you, Ellie. You said yourself you were tired." Ellen nodded, slowly, as if she agreed. But inside, the plan was already unfolding. Not a desperate outburst. Not a tantrum. Revenge wasn't a punch, it was chess. And Ellen had always been a master of patient play. She didn't argue. She didn't make a scene. That night, she packed a suitcase, only the essentials, and moved into Silver Pines without a word of protest. She even thanked Daniel for his care. He kissed her forehead and said, "You'll understand soon, Mom. This is for your own good." In that moment, Ellen almost cried. Not from grief. From rage. Because she understood, long before he ever would. Silver Pines wasn't as terrible as she'd feared. Cozy hallways, daily exercise classes, a library, even a small garden. But Ellen wasn't planning to stay long. This was just a temporary base. Her first move was to find a lawyer, not local, no. She chose an attorney from Columbus who specialized in family disputes and fiduciary abuse. His name was Marcus Berry. Dry, with eyes that had witnessed too many family tragedies to be surprised by another. "Do you have proof your son and sister acted in bad faith?" he asked. "I have everything," Ellen replied. And it was true. She'd kept copies of every document, every receipt, every bank statement. She'd recorded conversations with Daniel on an old voice recorder from the days when Richard was still alive. Even that moment in the kitchen when Linda whispered, "She clings too hard. We need her declared incompetent." Ellen wasn't foolish. She'd known this day would come. But she didn't just file a lawsuit. She went further. A week after moving into Silver Pines, Ellen started writing letters. Not to Daniel. Not to Linda. But to everyone who'd ever known their family. Former neighbors. Richard's old colleagues. Church council members. Even the bartender at the Oak Crown, the place where Richard used to grab a beer on Fridays. In her letters, she didn't complain. She didn't scream betrayal. She simply wrote, "Hi Mary. Remember when we cooked together at the Pumpkin Festival in '09? You mentioned Linda never looks people in the eye when talking about money. I didn't think much of it then. Now I wonder, maybe you were right." The letters were short, personal, non-accusatory. But each one left a question hanging in the air. What if there really is something wrong with Linda? Within 2 weeks, whispers started in town. "Did you hear Ellen Holmes is in assisted living?" "Yeah, but they say she was pushed." Linda did it, that woman who smiles like a mannequin. Linda felt it. Her perfect facade began to crack. Then came the breakthrough. Ellen found a copy of Richard's true will. The one he'd written just a month before he died. It clearly stated, all assets, including the home at 37 Oak Street, are to be transferred to my wife, Ellen Holmes. In the event of her death, to our son, Daniel. There was no mention of Linda. The document Daniel had handed to his aunt was forged. Richard's signature faked. The date altered. And the witness listed was a neighbor who died a full year before Richard. Ellen handed it all to Marcus. This isn't just fraud, he said. It's a criminal offense. But Ellen didn't want Linda in prison. She wanted shame. She wanted the whole town to know Linda wasn't the family savior. She was a predator who'd exploited her sister's illness and her nephew's trust. The legal battle began quietly. Then the local paper picked it up. Then Columbus News. And then Daniel came to her himself. Pale. Voice trembling. Mom, did you know? He asked. I knew everything, Ellen said. I was just waiting for you to see it yourself. But Aunt Linda, she said you were. That I was sick? Old? Incapable? She stepped closer, took his hands. Son, I've loved you since your first breath. But you believed a woman who's been lying to you from the start. Daniel cried. For the first time in 15 years. The court returned the house to Ellen. Linda was stripped of all claims to the estate. On top of that, she was forced to pay fines for forgery and breach of fiduciary duty. Her perfect life in Oak Hill collapsed in 3 weeks. And Ellen returned home. She rejoined the book club, resumed planting peonies by the porch. And every Saturday, she invited Daniel for lunch. No accusations, no blame. Just love. Because revenge isn't an ending. It's a return to yourself. A year later, Linda sent her one letter. Just one. And signed. Only these lines. You won. But you took my dignity. And that's worse than prison. Ellen read it, folded it neatly, and burned it in the fireplace. Then she poured herself a glass of white wine, sat on the porch, and watched the sunset. Revenge didn't bring Richard back. It didn't erase the years of loneliness. But it gave her back her self-respect. And the right to be heard. And in this world, especially past 60, that's worth more than any house.